Time for another video. Today I've come to Clifton Park in Rotherham to do the latest in the videos on Aspergers Syndrome and mental illness. The reason I've come to Clifton Park today is because you may just see behind me there's a group of people. And the reason I've chosen Clifton Park and that group of people as a backdrop is because today's subject is the subject of employment and finding and keeping a job when you've got a disease like Aspergers Syndrome or indeed any other mental illness. It might seem a bit odd to come to a park and have an odd group of people in the background, but the reason I've chosen that is because it's a ParkRun. It's Saturday morning, about 8:30, and anyway, the reason I've chosen the ParkRun as the backdrop is because one of the people who organised it, or helped organise it, and or volunteers to help run it, happens to be my former manager from when I worked at the council. An interesting story there, which quite a sad one as well, so it's disappointing that she still works there as a manager, but I'll tell you that in a bit. So unfortunately, people with autism are have some of the highest unemployment rates for all disabilities and illnesses. I think the National Autistic Society says something like 80% of people are unemployed, which is quite high. I think maybe 20% are in some employment, maybe only 10-15% are in full-time employment, which is really not that many in the grand scheme of things when you consider how many people are actually out there looking for work, but also when you consider other jobs as well, other illnesses and disabilities as well. That's really quite an unusually high amount. I think it's probably one of the highest. So how did I get started working then? Well, my first job after I left college, I studied engineering at college. This was during the financial crash of about 2008-ish, so everyone was getting made redundant and losing their jobs. There were very few jobs around at the time, so it was difficult for me to find one. My first one was actually at Marks and Spencer's in Doncaster. Got a relative who works there, and he got me a temporary job over Christmas. Or at least back then they took on people who were friends and family of the existing staff, because it's easy to find compared to putting adverts out, and I did that. And that was alright, actually, quite easy to get into. However, one major problem with it, and that was the issue of transport. We had a heck of a lot of snow that week, and I really struggled to get into work because of the public transport. And I tried on the bike, and that conked out, so I pretty much abandoned that. And I didn't work again. I actually didn't have any jobs at all for a few months, then went on benefits for a few months, and then eventually got the next job. So next job was a month-long temp contract at a local firm doing basically industrial scale paperwork. That was a month-long contract, but I lasted a day. And then next job I got after that was cleaning, working for Rotherham Borough Council. And that's the significance of the location today. So what are the problems with these jobs? Well, for starters, the retail one, everyone was quite nice at Marks and Spencer's, I must say. The problem really was with me getting lost. In the big sort of rabbit warren type store, it's easy to get lost. You've got the issue of getting to know everyone, you've got the issue of customers popping up out of nowhere wanting advice on products you've never heard of, so it's a bit difficult to sort out. Then you've got the issue of transport. I was at a store some distance away, whereas we did have a local store, which would have been more convenient. Paperwork job, that was just one of them things where everyone was, they didn't want to get to know anyone, they didn't want to tell you what the actual job was, it was a bit difficult. There's no personal service there with the management, and they're just very unpleasant towards you and things like that, so that was very difficult to get on with and very upsetting. And one time they actually tried to lock me in the building, at which point I threw a bit of a wobbly and said, you can't do that, I'm going to leave the building for lunch if I want to. I only managed a day there. And then the council job, I was working as a cleaner. I actually quite enjoyed that job. I mean, it's a bit of a dirty job. A lot of people don't like dirty jobs, but I don't mind them. I'm quite content doing dirty jobs. I ended up working at a school, not too far away, just a mile away, so easy to get to. Pay wasn't as good as it should have been, really, but it was higher than the minimum wage, which was all right for cleaning jobs at the time. I given the going rate. So I got on alright with that. I was mostly working on my own, which was a lot easier than working with people. Mostly got on okay with the people who I did talk to, so there's no particular difficulty there. However, this had a significant difference. On the application form, I think they're about to get going. On the application form it says they have an equal opportunities monitoring form, and it says that, are you disabled, you're homosexual, you're ethnic minority, things like that. And I made the silly mistake of ticking yes, I'm disabled. And during the interview, honestly I'd never been so humiliated when the interviewer asked me about this again, and I very begrudgingly told her that I had Aspergers Syndrome. And of course I don't really know much about Aspergers Syndrome, so I wasn't able to say what it was or what the effects of it were. And I don't think I've ever been quite so humiliated as I was in that job interview. But they gave me a job nonetheless. There was a slight mention of it where there was something where I might have been accused of being potentially dangerous, but I didn't think anything of it, and I got on with the job and it was alright. There were a few minor niggles with the job, but I sorted them, and there were no further complaints until 6 months later, when one of the bosses came to see me and said, we don't want you anymore. So that was quite upsetting. And eventually he said, well, you know, Mr. Coates, if you're disabled, there are benefits you can claim. So being experienced in claiming benefits, I actually told him that it is actually easier to go into work every day than it is to claim benefits. And a lot of people don't realise that. I think claiming benefits is easy until they actually try. So I may well have had a disability discrimination claim there, but the thing is, I'd only worked there 6 months. You don't have many employment rights until you've worked somewhere for a year or more. And this was only just as the Equality Act of 2010 was coming in, and of course the 19-20-ish year old, I didn't really know much about the law at the time, which I do now. And the issue with that was that cleaning was about the only job where they take you on a 0 hours contract. They only took people on 0 hours contracts with the intention of sort of keeping on permanently those who they like. Every other job tended to be a normal contract. This one, cleaning, always 0 hours. I don't think they do that anymore, but they did back then. So that takes us to the subject of the ParkRun and the council manager. I'd never met the manager before until I actually got sacked from the job. The department manager, sorry. Who was very rude, very miserable. She wouldn't pay the last month's wages until I sort of pestered them for it multiple times. She wouldn't answer correspondence. She claimed to have lost correspondence that was sent by recorded delivery. They claimed that complaints had been made about the work, but conveniently had no record of what the complaints were. They didn't know what it was. They don't have any means of keeping records, so they don't keep the letters. They don't make notes from the phone calls. And the only, when I pressed them to find out what specifically was wrong with my work, the only one specific example that they could come up with where I got it wrong was that I mopped a floor and walked back over it several months earlier, and someone saw that and wrote it down. Well, you know, you have to walk over floors in order to get around the building. It's kind of part of the job. But of course, someone working in management is a bit too thick to understand that. Anyway, the council manager, and I haven't got a clue if she's here today or not. Maybe I'll have to have a little wander around and see. But she's still in the job, still works for the council, and she got an award off the Queen recently. I don't know if it's an OBE or an MBE. It was one of the two. This is before the Queen died. And that was for services to cleaning. I saw this, I thought that's absolutely ridiculous. I thought, when was the last time someone like that ever got on her hands and knees and scrubbed vomit out of a carpet? So yeah, I think enough said, you know, services to cleaning, award from the Queen, complete thicko, no humanity, no sort of regard for the public. So yeah, I think that sums it up quite well, you know. Got an award from the Queen for services to cleaning. I bet she wouldn't know what a toilet brush was if you shoved one up her backside. I mean, that tells you what what management are like, and I'm sure anyone who's worked most jobs will probably have similar stories about the management. They're just completely thick. Anyway, what's ParkRun? Today we've got ParkRun. I'm just going to flip the camera around so that you can actually see them. ParkRun basically is running around a park. Sounds nice and easy. You and I could do it whenever we want, at a time that's convenient to us, completely free of charge. But the idea with ParkRun, maybe you can see them. Can you see them in the background? I think you can just about see them in the background there. But the idea with the ParkRun is, instead of going out and running, you have to invest lots of money in computers and smartphones and internet access, which is not cheap, so that you can sign up and give your personal details away to their organisation, and then run at a time that's convenient to them. And they know who you are, they time you, and you get a place on the website, but you have to go to what seems like an awful lot of expense. And it seems a bit odd, because running's supposed to be free. Maybe you've got the cost of the shoes, but it's otherwise supposed to be free. And for some reason, general practitioners actually recommend this, as a way to get fit. If you've been ill, it's a good way to get fit. Yeah, I mean, if you've got groups, there's groups of people, it can help you get started, whereas you might not want to go out on your own, which is fair enough. But, having to faff around with a computer and a smartphone, it just seems like an awful lot of effort to run around a park. So just before I end the video, what advice would I give you if you're looking for work? Well, for starters, if you tell them you're disabled, you're going to get discriminated against. If there's any possibility of gossip, or if you show any symptoms, you're going to get discriminated against. You've got to expect it. Even though it's been illegal for many years, it will happen. I can almost guarantee it. So, it's actually quite difficult to find work. Lots of people don't advertise very well. The newspaper's always empty. If you go in the job centre, they don't like to help you, because if you're on disability benefits, it's their aim to get you off benefits. But if they help you look for work, you might be, they can't actually force you into work. So you might spend time looking at jobs, but you might never apply for one or get one, and that's not in their interest. It's in their interest to get you off benefits. So really, it's impossible to give advice. I used to quite like my old cleaning job. It's a bit outside of what I'm qualified in. I'm qualified in engineering, but I quite liked it nonetheless. And you get people say autistic people are only suitable for computer work. Well, I find the IT industry completely boring, and I'm very out of touch with it. There's people who do data entry and software testing and things like that these days, and that just sounds really, really boring. I'd rather be scrubbing toilets out. At least I'm keeping active doing that. So, unfortunately, I don't have any advice to give. I think all you can do is try your best.